Ein herzliches Grüß Gott und willkommen, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, zu unserem Webinar Economic Development and Business Opportunities in Azerbaijan and Georgia. Wir haben heute hier ganz besondere Gäste für Sie, auch unsere Partnerorganisationen, möchte ich sagen. Und die sind aus Georgien und Aserbaidschan und daher haben wir auch gesagt, dass wir das Webinar auf Englisch machen werden. Und ich darf jetzt gleich auf Englisch weitermachen. So, a very warm welcome to all to our webinar, Georgia and Azerbaijan, Opportunities and Business Developments. It's my big pleasure that we are able to do this webinar here today, because actually we should all be in Baku and in Tiflis this week. This was the plan. And in the last moment, a few weeks ago, we had to decide that we do it online once more. But I promise everybody that in autumn, we will come and do face-to-face meetings again, our traditional trade missions once or twice a year. And we're also here together with our traditional partners, whom I would like to thank a lot for taking time, for being here. This is AZPROMO, the Azerbaijani organization promotion for export and investment. And we have with us the acting president, Mr. Yusuf Abdullayev. Very well, welcome, thank you. And with, of course, in Georgia, we have our long-standing partner, the Georgian Chamber for Commerce and Industry, and President Georgi Pertaya, who has taken his time to join us. We also have then some input from AZPROMO, from Mr. Serhab Gadirov. You see here, he will make a presentation about the Azerbaijan economy. And from Georgian side, we have the organization of the executive director of the Georgian Employers Association, Mr. Lasha Labatse, who will also talk about the Georgian economy. So, ladies and gentlemen, we see lots of very important people who are very knowledgeable about their country's economy, who will speak to us and present to us the developments, and of course also a glimpse to the future to see which opportunities we have. My name is Georg Karabatschik. I'm the Austrian trade delegate from sitting in Istanbul, but very frequently, when COVID is permitting, going to Azerbaijan and Georgia, looking after these two countries also. Before we start, I would just like to say two technicalities. First of all, we expect your questions. Please put them in the chat, and at the end of the session, we will have enough time to answer them, and if not, we will come back to you by mail. This question and answer part will be moderated by my colleague Christian Meyer, head of our anchor office. And then all the presentations and the whole webinar with a link will be online after the event. So don't worry, you will get it all. You will get an email for us with the link and with the presentation. So you can, if you have missed something, you can just continue and have a look at it afterwards. Now, with no further ado, I would like to ask Mr. Yusuf Abdullayev, acting president of AZPROMO, to address us. Please. We can't hear you, Mr. Abdullayev. I'm afraid we have a technical problem.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Can you hear me? Yes, because
yes,
I muted myself, but
yeah.
now
we can hear you well. We can hear you well, Mr. President.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this meeting. And of course, for us, it's very interesting to be to participate in such platform. And of course, all of us would like to be in offline, but nevertheless, we're using this new technologies. Well, actually, it's not new because we're using more than almost 1.5 years due to pandemic. So nevertheless, we could meet online. So once again, thank you for this opportunity. And of course, I'm pleased to welcome everyone at this webinar. The relations between our countries have a great history. Austria, Georgia, and Azerbaijan have close friendly relations, and of course, our country cooperates in the political and economic and other fields. Events of this format serve as a convenient platform for establishing a direct ties between the business community and identifying possible areas of cooperation in order to implement mutual beneficial projects. Of course, we pay special attention to bilateral relations with Georgia as well as with Austria. Georgia is one of the Azerbaijan's closest allies in the region, and today Georgia and Azerbaijan are united primarily by global energy, transport, communication projects as Baku-Supsa, Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum, Trasika, BTC, Baku-Tbilisi-Kars. And in parallel, cooperation within GUAM is the Georgia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and Moldova, the Black Sea Economic Cooperation Organization, and of course, other organizations as well. Bilateral political relations between Azerbaijan and the Republic of Austria were established in 1992, and political and economic relations between our countries at a high level. So far, officials of the two countries have paid several visits during which the governments of both countries signed a joint declaration on friendly relations and partnership, elimination of double taxation and investment promotion. Now, with your permission, I would like to brief you on the activity of our organization. AZPROMO is both a trade promotion organization and an investment promotion agency. We exist since 2003, and we possess solid experience and expertise in both directions. We have a great database of the exporting Azerbaijani companies, and AZPROMO has extensive experience in organizing various events. It's some kind of our third direction which we're focused on. And so far, we organized numerous successful events at the presidential level, at the level of prime minister, ministers, and etc. And of course, we have had quite productive events with both Georgia and Austria, such as business forums and business meetings. Our countries have great potential for the development and diversification of economic relations to a new level. As a result of measures taken, the business and investment climate in our countries constantly improving. The legislation, business registration, tax and customs systems are being improved. Administrative procedures are simplified. The scope of the e-government system is expanded. We are working on as AZPROMO, being the part of the Ministry of Economy of Azerbaijan, we are working on the new export strategy of promoting our country, our products worldwide. And our goal, the main goal within the strategy is to double our non-oil and gas export in 2025. And also we are working on a draft of a strategy for foreign direct investment. It's the promotion strategy. And we working on this strategy with our colleagues from International Finance Corporation, from IFC, and this year we will start the implementation of this strategy. And of course, my colleagues Zohram Gadir, he will give the more detailed information about export strategies and FDI strategies as well. I would like to also give information about the historical war which we've been in 2020, and after this 44-day war for Azerbaijan, new era begins, and with the development and restoration of our liberated territories. A concept for the restoration of the territories liberated from occupation is being developed, and this concept will be implemented in 4 stages. The initial stage includes clearing the territories of mines and other ammunition. The second stage covers infrastructure issues. At this stage, the construction of roads, the establishment of telecommunication networks, the supply of electricity, water, and gas takes place. And the third stage, social services are provided. Among them, the most important areas are recognized as a health and education institutions, including hospitals, clinics, of course, and general and secondary special schools, and etc. The final stage covers the aspect of the reconstruction and the development of the economy. In parallel with the relocation of the population to the territory, the construction of the real sector, industry, agriculture, services is carried out, and the organization of financial and banking services provided. Using this opportunity, I would like to invite a private sector from both countries in cooperation in reviving Karabakh region. We also believe that all of you know that the trilateral protocol has been signed among the parties on 10th November last year, and we are looking forward to cooperation with the private partners in tapping the unrealized potential of the new transportation routes, because I think this is also very important for our countries and for the region as well. And of course, I also would take this opportunity, would like to invite the business community to take advantage of these opportunities. And taking into account the trends of the digitalization and the technological evolution in the world, a Center for Analysis and Coordination of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Ministry of Economy was established by the decree of our president. The innovations brought into our lives by the Fourth Industrial Revolution are aimed at introducing and developing innovation in a variety of areas that are closely related to digitalization and the construction of technological infrastructure. And of course, I don't want to waste your time with the more details, because as I've already mentioned, my colleague from AZPROMO, Zohrab Gadirov, we will make the presentation with all these details about what's happening in Azerbaijan in all the sphere. And I would like once again to thank you in order to invite us to be the part of this platform. Of course, as an organizer, for us, it's also very important, and I do believe that maybe the second part of this year we can make a little bit more offline meetings. In Azerbaijan, we've already started with that because the situation is pandemic is normalizing, and we do believe that at the end of this year we will organize more offline meetings. So once again, thank you very much for your attention, and sorry for my late connection because that was some technical problems. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullayev, for these kind words and introductory remarks. And now I would like to invite Mr. Georgi Pertaya, President of the Georgian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to welcome us.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, on behalf of the Georgian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I'm extremely pleased to address you on this very special event and express appreciation to the government of Austria and Advantage Austria for organizing this trade mission. Before the pandemic, there was a significant increase in business-to-business relations. We frequently hosted Austrian enterprises in Georgia and also the businessmen from Azerbaijan, and organized business delegation visits to Austria and to Azerbaijan. I'm glad that despite the challenges, we are still continuing our efforts, even though in a different formats. As a former director of investment agency, I had the privilege to discuss investment climate and advantages of Georgia with potential investors on daily basis. And I'm sure that during the presentation, which I'm going to make a little bit later, you will discover a number of opportunities for your business as well. Many Austrian and Azerbaijani companies have already discovered Georgia as a place to invest and develop their business. I strongly believe that this trade mission will be beneficial for all participants. And as a chamber, in cooperation with our Austrian partners and Azerbaijani partners, I express our readiness to provide assistance and support in all areas of interest. I'm going to make a small overview of Georgian economy, current situation of Georgian economy a little bit later, but for now, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Georgi Pertayev. And now we go back to Azerbaijan, and I would like to invite Mr. Zohrab Gadirov, who is the head of the investment promotion department of AZPROMO, to give us an overview of the Azerbaijan economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karabachik. Thank you for this opportunity. I would also like to greet all the participants, although we cannot see them as of now. I think I can start using the presentation, if I will.
Yes, you can. Just click into the presentation.
I already did once. Yeah, excellent. So I would like to start with the overview of the economy of Azerbaijan as of the year end 2020, which was a very, very special year for all of us due to specific reasons. But for Azerbaijan, as Mr. Abdullayev mentioned, for two reasons: for the reason of the war on liberation of territories. When it comes to the economy, then I can say that overall GDP may be seen from this slide, and it's $42 billion. Population-wise, we reached the milestone figure of 10 million a year ago, and on the distribution of the oil versus non-oil sector, what we have been doing and trying to achieve over the recent years is the increase of non-oil compared to oil sector. And as you may see, we have some success and progress in this. Over the past several years, we've had a composition more or less so of 60% non-oil compared to around 40% of oil economies. So this is something on the GDP structure. When it comes to trading, then I must say that we have a positive trading balance, as you may see as of the year end 2020. I should probably also mention that in the previous years, this positive balance was even higher. Due to the limitations that pandemics has brought, this figure went down slightly, but nevertheless, the balance is still positive. From our side, from the viewpoint of AZPROMO, I think the most interesting part of the chart here is on the left bottom side, and this is the composition of non-oil exports out of Azerbaijan. And you can see that chemicals and cotton and fruits and vegetables and aluminiums and plastics considered the most important commodities out of Azerbaijan when it comes to non-oil export. This is something for you just to consider. Another thing I would like to deliver to your attention, excuse me, I think I'm trying to shift this. I may be wrong, but I think it froze a bit. I'm trying to move to the next slide, and I clicked on it a couple of times. Thank you. Just to give you some heads up, especially from the participants from the Austrian side, as I think our friends and colleagues from Georgia are very well aware of the situation of the map in our region. When you take a look at the major roads going from east to west and from north to south, you may see the intersection is taking place precisely in Azerbaijan. I mean, the road from north of Europe, from Russia going to India, all the way down to India, and north from and away from Europe to China. There is an intersection in Azerbaijan. So this is just to give you an understanding of geographic location and the position of Azerbaijan. I'd like to tell you that there is, and this is very important for us, there's only one country between Azerbaijan and China, and that is Kazakhstan, and there's also just one country between Azerbaijan and European Union, and that's Turkey. So this is giving you some understanding as to the location of the country. Also, if you consider 3 major roads going from east to west, from China to Europe, then the middle road compared to the northern road going through Russia and the southern maritime road is much shorter, both time-wise and distance-wise. So this is something to bear in mind as well. And of course, this middle road is going through Azerbaijan. Trying to shift to the next slide now. Yes. So you may ask a natural question of, okay, you have a very good geographic location. How about the infrastructure within the country and the connectivity opportunities? And I must say that the answer would be that infrastructure is very good. Over the past years, we've had more than 15,000 of roads and highways either built from scratch or renovated. So this component of infrastructure is in a very good condition. We have 6 international airports, and moreover, as a result of the liberation of territories, we have a construction of an additional ongoing airport in one of the liberated regions, and I think we may be having even more airports provided for that region. So with airports wise, there's also a very good connectivity. On the Caspian Sea, we have one of the largest, if not the largest, sea trade port, international sea trade port, that is 70 kilometers south of capital of Baku, in the Alat settlement of Azerbaijan. And that's a very interesting location because apart from the seaport, that area is also having a railway connectivity to the area of the port directly, not anywhere nearby, but precisely to the area of the port. And of course, highways are good. The major highway connection is there as well. So this is very important to mention. Apart from this, there is a greater area of free economic zone that is surrounding Baku International Sea Trade Port, which will be providing more opportunities for investors and will be providing some significant incentives. So this is a very interesting area to consider and to keep in mind. Yes, thank you. There's a very brief information on the ratings by major rating agencies. But what I'd like to draw your attention to is that we ranked number 28 out of 190 economies in World Bank's Doing Business report as of the year end 2020. On some of the positions, Azerbaijan has been doing well, very well, and it's it's included in the top 10 reformist countries across the globe. Can I please ask you to shift to the next slide? Yes. On the sovereign wealth fund of Azerbaijan, I think this is a very interesting slide because you may see that sovereign wealth fund is basically equal to GDP of the country, because in the first slide you could see that GDP was also $42 billion. So this is a good reflection of the country's FX assets. And just for your information, we're providing here is the distribution of those assets, and you can see that this portfolio is well diversified. A year ago, in 2020, a new Azerbaijan investment holding was created, which is encompassing, which is having within it the number of state-owned enterprises, and you can see the list of those enterprises within here. The major goal of establishing of such investment holding is making state-owned enterprises working more efficient, being transparent, absolutely, in some cases There's going to be preparation for the privatization processes, and it's very important to make sure that they are self-sustaining, and there's an increasing competitiveness on the side of the Azerbaijani companies. So this is an important component as well. On the business infrastructure, you may see this the reduced red tape information, and this is regarding the reforms we've had in the country over the past several years. There are no state inspections of the businesses, and that has been so for the several years now. We have improved a number of various systems, and one of them is licensing system and provision of permit system. When it comes to permits, we decreased the number of permits from 320 to around 80. So that's a four-fold decline. With the licensing system, it is the same. The number has been reduced, whereas it is much faster, cheaper to get those licenses. And one very important issue to mention is that once you get the license, you get it for lifetime. It doesn't have any, time-related restrictions or like some specific tenor attached to it. There's a developed provision of state services over eGov platform, and one-stop shop system has been applied in several areas of provision of the services on the side of the state as well, such as ours in terms of export and investment promotion, as AZPROMO is acting as a one-stop shop within the country. So if you have any questions related to those issues, both within the course of today, I think, but also apart from that, through the emails or like direct calling, you can always obtain information about that. Apart from this, one-stop shop systems exist in registration of companies, in provision of the already mentioned licenses and permits, in customs, and in some other areas as well. And it's very also important to mention that over the past several years, the tax burden has been reduced significantly. In the state, tax inspections have also been reduced. This is actually very well reflected in the already mentioned World Bank's doing business report. If you have any interest to go through that, you will see the significant improvements on the tax system. In some areas, such as agriculture, profit tax has been abolished for the past 22 years now, and this will last at least up until 2024. It may be there may be prolongation of such state of affairs even beyond 2024. So that's important. If you consider establishment of production, if you consider making investments in Azerbaijan, I think one very major thing to consider is further export out of the country. And when it comes to export, there are no export duties related to this, so that's very good information. We're working on removing of the trade barriers, and the government itself is providing several mechanisms for promotion of exports. One of those is specifically trade houses of the country that exist in various locations, where you can exhibit and you provide the produce made in Azerbaijan in those respective markets. You can see some of them. There's also a very important institution of trade representatives in Azerbaijan that we have in 4 major locations that you may see. One of them is also covering the several European countries. This may be seen on your bottom right side. Apart from this, I just wanted to mention that investment-wise, there are very good conditions. There's a very good climate in the country, and this is the slide that we would be normally calling positive no slide. You have no on local counterpart requirement. You don't need one. You may have one if you want to, but you don't need to have one if you don't want to. You can bring in the capital. There are no restrictions on that. You can take out the capital. There are no restrictions on repatriation of profits. There are no restrictions on technology transfer. on FX the transactions, and very important to mention, there are no differences between local and foreign investors. There's only one limitation that is coming to my mind when I think of difference between local and foreign investors, and that is the inability of foreign investors to own the land directly. But that issue is also very easily solved through the opening of company. If you establish a company in Azerbaijan, which only takes a couple of days, like literally like 2 days to establish a company, this company can own land, or otherwise you may rent land for 49 or 99 years period. So that issue is also very easily solvable. We have established a number of bilateral investment treaties and double taxation avoidance treaties, and you may see that we have this treaty signed with Austria as well, for sure. Now I'd like to provide you some more information on the incentives that Mr. Abdullayev has mentioned in his speech as well. One of them is you may consider becoming a resident in one of the industrial and technology parks that we have within the country. And in such case, for the period of 10 years, you would be paying 0% corporate income tax, you would be paying 0% of land and property taxes, and on the equipment you bring in or technology you bring in for the production purposes, you would be paying 0% VAT. And for the period of 7 years, you would be paying 0% of custom duties on the same equipment that you bring in for the production purposes. If for some reason you're not willing to be a part of the one of the parks mentioned, for instance, you need a bigger area, or you target the country's some specific region where there are no parks, or then you can obtain the so-called investment promotion document, which is granting you basically very similar incentives, and that is going to be for the period of 7 years. 50% reduced corporate income tax, and if you take into account that in Azerbaijan the income tax is 20%, then for this period of 7 years you would only be paying 10%. With land and property taxes, it's again total exemption, and 0% of VAT and custom duties applied to the hardware and equipment imported in the country for the production purposes. I'd like to mention very briefly here some sector opportunities that exist in the country, and these are majorly and certainly in the following sectors, but this is not bounded or this is not exclusive within these sectors. I think one of the very last things that I want to mention here is that we've been working closely on both promotion of export and investment. As Mr. Abdullayev mentioned, we prepared a new national export strategy, which is having some focus regions and countries and some focus products, and it targets increase of non-oil exports twofold by 2025. And also on FDI promotion strategy, I must say that we're also targeting some specific markets in there, and we're aiming at traction of foreign direct investments from specific locations. Europe is absolutely on the list. We would be very glad and interested in cooperation with our Austrian counterparts. I'm not saying anything about Georgia because we are very close and very good neighbors and friends with Georgia. We know each other's economies and markets very well. So if you have any questions at a later stage, please feel free to reach out at any point. With this in mind, I thank you very much again for this opportunity, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Gadirov, for this very comprehensive and detailed overview. I think it leaves not many questions open, but I may remind you, please put your questions all the same in the chat if you have some. With this, we go over the border and go back to Georgia, and I would now like to invite Mr. Georgi Pertaya once again to tell us something about the economy in Georgia.
Thank you very much. First of all, I also would like to thank Mr. Gadirov and Mr. Abdullayev for a very nice presentation about Azerbaijan. I think that all of us in Georgia we are very happy that Azerbaijani economy is back on track on the and recovering, because we are really good neighbors. We are cooperating in different fields. It's not only just logistics. There are a lot of spheres, other themes, and I think that we depend on each other a lot. So I think when Azerbaijan economy goes up, our economy goes up as well, simply saying. Now about the Georgia. Georgian Chamber of Commerce, our Chamber of Commerce, it's a public law-based organization. It's halfway financed by the government and also from different income services that we provide. It's the largest business support organization in Georgia. We have more than 1,600 members, including large companies like Bank of Georgia and small and medium entrepreneurs from all sectors. The Chamber acts as a mediator between potential businesses from Georgia and abroad. Our aim is to simplify business-related procedures, and you can consider us as your reliable partner. Now a little bit about the Georgian economy, because actually everything what we were saying like 2 years ago, year and a half ago, actually we have to change a little bit, because economy changed, environment changed, even the mood and the psychology of the potential investors has been changed. So we all, as you heard about Azerbaijan, we will hear about the Georgia, and you probably are listening to other countries, and you see that even the investment attraction policies are changing in different countries. So the situation in Georgia right now is that the COVID-19 outbreak has hit the global economy hard, and output loss have been particularly large for countries that rely on tourism and commodity exports, and for those with limited policy space to respond. The recovery path globally in Caucasus and Central Asia countries and Georgia significantly depends on our policy actions, targeted measures, and tailoring policies to the existing needs and post-pandemic developments. In the 7th review of the program, IMF staff mentions that Georgian government has taken appropriate steps to elevate the adverse economic and social impact of the shock given the pronounced economic slowdown. Considering the most significant exposure of tourism sector to the shock, negative economic growth in Georgia amounted to 6.2%. Notably, some sectors recorded positive growth rates like healthcare, obviously, agriculture and education sectors. According to IMF projections, after the economic contraction in 2020, economy will rebound by 3.5% in 2021 this year, and reflecting subdued tourism recovery. However, medium-term growth projection amounts to 5.1% in 2021 to 2026, supported by infrastructure spending and the sustained structural reforms to increase productivity, enhance private sector-led growth. It is worth to mention that government of Georgia prioritized the structural reforms to address the challenges and focus on long-term development goals. Our policy priorities and structural reforms are oriented at structural transformation of the economy, inclusive access to the economic opportunities. This decisive implementation of reforms is critical to support the recovery and limit scaling from the COVID-19 shock, mobilizing investment by developing new investment policy, advancing new infrastructure instruments for access to finance, capital market development, and etc. Generally, to put everything in the simple words, Georgia's economy depends a lot on the tourism. It depends a lot on the export, and depends on the foreign direct investments. Unfortunately, we don't have the natural resources, the big deposits of the natural resources like oil and gas. So the main motor of the economy is the money which comes from the selling the services like tourism and export, selling the products, etc. So the pandemic reduced all of it, actually. Less reduction was in export, of course, but tourism was close to zero. And of course, the foreign direct investments also reduced quite a lot. But we believe that this year, because vaccination goes quite well, we believe that this year the tourism will be open. We already are seeing quite a lot of tourists in the center of Tbilisi from CIS countries, from Europe, from Israel, from Arab countries, and we are happy to see it. We believe that it's going to go up quite soon because our neighbor countries and the countries where the tourists are coming from, the vaccination process also goes quite fast. And we believe that it's going to change at the end of the year. We are going to have at least 60%, 50% of the tourists that we had before pandemic. And I would like to remind you that before pandemic in 2019, we had approximately 9.5 million foreign visitors in the country. And please take into account that the country size is 3.7 million. So and all the investments and all the businesses related to tourism was booming. So we believe that we will go back on this track maybe after 2 years, 2.5 years. Now about the opportunities. So as I said, COVID-19 brought a lot of challenges, but I believe that it also opens a lot of opportunities. Georgia offers a stable political environment, low-cost workforce, low utility costs, optimal time proximity, integration in international markets, unique geographic location that our colleagues and friends from Azerbaijan were talking about, and quite attractive tax regime. We are number 7 out of 190 countries in doing business 2020. We also are in 2020 index of economic freedom. Georgia ranks number 12 in the world and number 6 in Europe. And there are a lot of different agencies that ranks the Georgia on the higher places. There is a Forbes, there is Heritage Foundation, etc., etc. In reality, practically, it looks like when you come to Tbilisi, you can open the company in hours. You can pay taxes. You can make the contracts. They approve the contracts. The change in your structure of the business, etc., etc. In one place actually. With all the tax incentives, Georgia is, of course, the unique location. We are WTO members from 2000 year. We have, with our free trade agreements, we have the access to 2.3 billion market. Actually, Georgia has a quite unique situation. We have free trade agreement with whole European Union. We have free trade agreement with China, including Hong Kong. We have free trade agreement with CIS countries. Right now, we have the negotiation with South Korea, and we are engaged in negotiations with India and Israel. I think that the policy of the country is clear here, even though in pandemic situation, a lot of countries started talking about some protectionist ideas because of the dismantling of some supply chains. A lot of countries started talking about why we cannot start producing this and that products. We still were in the negotiation of the free trade agreement with India, South Korea, and Israel. So the policy is clear. It doesn't matter what's going to happen in Georgia. It doesn't matter what kind of companies will come, what kind of political parties will come to the party. The policy is clear. We are going to be open country. We are for free market, and we are going to welcome all the investors that come from Europe, from Asia, from Gulf countries, and etc. Georgia is trying to become the regional financial center in inviting large transnational companies to open regional representations and receive unique tax incentives. The government of Georgia provides international companies. There is a special status, international companies operating in IT and logistics sectors with an opportunity to obtain the status of international company and operate in Georgia. So the companies, in simple words again, if the company is working on the IT or in IT or logistics sectors, opens his representation in Georgia and sells their services outside of Georgia, then this company can get the status of international company, and actually this kind of companies are paying almost no taxation for these companies. I mean the corporate tax, I'm talking about the dividend tax, I'm talking about the other taxes. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to first of all attract the different IT BPOs, business processing outsourcing companies, and also we are trying to promote the Georgian export. The best investment for Georgia, all the investments are good, of course, but the best investment in Georgia is that investment which brings the knowledge and also which promotes the export, because as I said from the beginning, our current account deficit, a lot of big time is financed by the export, by the FDI and also the tourism. So generally, I could speak about the investment and business climate in Georgia for hours. I really enjoy it, and we would just scratch the surface. But unfortunately, we are limited time. I would like to once again express appreciation to the organizers for the opportunity. Thank you for your attention, and also I would like to thank my friends from Azerbaijan for very interesting presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Pertaya, for this insight into Georgia, which looks very nice. And now we are a little bit running out of time, that's true, but I think it's very interesting to hear. But I would now like to invite Mr. Lasha Lavadze, Executive Director of the Employers Association, to complement what President Pertaya has told us about Georgia.
Excuse me, Mr. Karabatic. In 10 minutes, we will have the Intergovernment Commission between UK and Azerbaijan. So I would like to take participation. So sorry for this interruption. So
thank you, Mr. President, for being here. And
thank you very much for this invitation, this opportunity to you and to your colleagues. Mr. Pertaya, thank you very much. Madluba. We are very glad to see you, and I do believe that we will meet the next time in Azerbaijan or in Tbilisi. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello to everyone. So I'm representing Georgian Employers Association. We are founded 20 years ago, and our main aim is to support local companies in trade, in other services, and also to make communication with the foreign companies. First of all, I would like to thank you for organizing today's webinar and for opportunity to share our experiences in field of economic development and investment opportunities that are available in each of our countries. So now we all know that the negative impact of the COVID crisis has on our countries, and unfortunately its impact goes far. The economic of many countries have shuffled crisis, and its inflow of investment into the country has partly suspended. Georgia is one of the countries where COVID-19 had a similar influence. Our economic data for now is not so good, may I say. Also, we have a lack of investments. Investments have decreased. We have loss of jobs and have a low rate of foreign trade and direct investments. However, the crisis has accelerated some areas that have low rate of development before, especially it was the areas of information technologies, digital transformation, cyber safety, and also made a huge demand for human resources now from local and also international market. These mentioned sectors are one of the most important, challenging, and also we have opportunities as well in these sectors because it needs more investment and knowledge from our country. as well for countries from these sectors to enter to the Georgian market with their knowledge and with their experience in this field. Also, I want to mention the big support from the Georgian government in this regard, because I will mention that Georgian government created a new development strategy for SME businesses for 2001-2005, and which reflects all the priority direction that our country will work on it in the next years. Also, if you are interested, I can share this document a little bit later. That you will see what kind of directions we will work in these years. Also, I mentioned that focus on IT and education is very high. And finally, I passed along. And finally, I want to agree with Mr. George Pertaya's presentation or speak about the mentioned economic indicators and situation for investment and economic growth in Georgia. And I hope that this dynamic of growth which we had till the last years, we will renew in end of this year, and the economic processes will be the same conditions it was in Georgia. So once again, I want to thank for organizers for this event, and best wishes to the participants and for your countries. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labatze, for these encouraging words. Also, we all hope it will continue as a growth story this year and, of course, next year. Now, I know we're running a little bit short of time, but still, I would like to go to a few points. Much has been said about Georgia and Azerbaijan, the economy. Just a few points from my side. First of all, I would like to introduce our team once again, so that the Austrian companies that you know whom to contact. So my name is Georg Karabacing in Istanbul. This is the head office for the region. And we have a smaller office in Ankara, where Christian Meyer, whom you see here now, is the head. And he will also do the moderation of Q&A. But we also have one office in Tbilisi and one in Baku. Each one is a one-woman, one-man show. And I would like to introduce to you Anna Lataria, who is our head of office in Tbilisi, on the spot, on the ground, as we say. She knows everything about the country, and you can contact her directly or by us. And then in Baku, Mr. Sabir Mamadov, for many years, is head of our office there. So you be free to contact him directly or via us, of course, in Istanbul, as you wish. But this is, of course, very important that you have your people on the ground in the country who speak the language and who know the country very well. Yes, I have prepared a small presentation, a small comparison between the three countries. If I can, there's a problem today with the slides. Now it was too fast. Yeah, this is coming back. Yes, just short view. You see the three countries, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Austria. You see the comparison in the size. Azerbaijan and Austria approximately the same size. Georgia a little bit smaller, but still not far away. And then if you look at the people living there, we have again Austria and Azerbaijan very similar, and Georgia was here 3.9, 3.7. They're different numbers, much less people on the space they have. So if we look at the GDP, again, you will see Azerbaijan and Georgia per capita will be approximately the same. But of course, Austria has a much higher GDP. So you see a big difference here, but we are sure and we hope that this will change in a positive way. Now, what hasn't been mentioned too much, but the pandemic has really been an issue. And again, here we see that Azerbaijan was very well off, you could say, because with much more people, it's much less, in comparison, much less people got sick. And Austria, as we all know, in Austria was, especially the second phase, not so well off. So we had quite a lot of cases. And also with the deaths, it's the same situation. But if we look at the help which the governments have given directly to the companies, to the people, all included. This is calculated by GDP. We see that Austria with 6.2 is actually one of the highest in the whole world, and in any case in the European Union, with 6.2% of GDP being given to people suffering from the pandemic. And you see in Azerbaijan and Georgia still it's quite high, because in other countries it's even lower. So this was a very important contribution, I think, from the governments to help the people, help the government, help the companies. And I know in Georgia also there was a lot of help coming from the EU and World Bank and other institutions to overcome this crisis, where we hope that it will be over very soon. And that's why I'm also just want to compare the foreign trade. What are we talking about? This is 2020, so it was a bad year, you could say. The left side is Georgia. Austrian exports are blue, products dark blue, and services light blue. So in total, Austria exports approximately 90 million euros to Georgia. And you can see that the Georgian exports to Austria are very low. So we all hope, and Mr. Pattaya and the Georgian chairman know, that we support also Georgian exporters to Austria very low. On the right-hand side, we see exactly the opposite. With Azerbaijan, it's the opposite. While Austria exports, again, an amount of about 70 million, changing every year, we import a lot. And I must say, this is nearly all of it, all of the goods is oil and gas. That's this we know. So 110 million in the year 2020 was oil and gas imports from Azerbaijan, but a huge trade surplus for Azerbaijan. So this is just that we know which numbers we're talking about, and in general it's so that it changes every year according to projects which Austrian companies have in their countries, and this can be more and be less, but that's approximately what we're talking about. Now I would like to go back to a short look at Georgia. What is special, jumping too far, about Georgia is, we have heard it, I want to emphasize it again, that Georgia is very EU near, you could say, very I think to EU, and it has this deep and comprehensive free trade agreement, which makes trade very easy with Georgia. Again, many free trade agreements with other countries, and no more visa. This is since 2007, which is also very special. And I must openly say, from my point of view, when I go to Georgia, I see more European flags than in any European country. So you see the whole country is very oriented towards the EU and is very open and very liberal. So it's really, as we heard already, it's very easy to do business there. For the Austrian companies, this is our perspective, our perception. So I don't want to, I know that this is not always the same opinion like in Georgia and Azerbaijan, but I think more or less we all agree that we see that Austrian companies, their goods and their offer, their products, they are very well suited for the Georgian market, and we have very good relations. Austrian companies are normally welcome. Everybody respects the good quality of Austrian companies, and it's good to have small and medium-sized companies in Austria, which fits very well also to the Georgian companies and their structure. That's why we see very good opportunities for Austrian companies. The relations are good. Georgia is very pro-Europe. There are free trade agreements. It's open, it's liberal. Corruption has come down very significantly, and its ease of doing business, we heard, is there, and it's true. You can really found a company in one day. We've just gone through it with a company. When we see where the problematic, more difficult parts, well, for Austrian companies, of course, it's a small market, so many Austrian companies don't focus on it, and this is what we're trying to change with our trade missions, and to say, look, it's small, but still have a try at it. And you have to go there and meet the people as soon as the pandemic is over, with a good food and good drink and a lovely country, which Georgia is. People like to do it, but they need the time. So we have to see, is it worth focusing? Because if you want to do business, you have to focus. You have to get into contacts with the people and build up the market, of course. And of course, our products are maybe good, but they, of course, they're not cheap. So that's also a question which is always the main question, which will repeat itself. We have to finance our exports, and that's always quite a challenge. With political situation at the moment, it's not as stable as the companies would wish it to be, but I'm sure it will stabilize again. It's, as I said, it's a small country with not so rich, not so many resources. So sometimes financing is difficult. And as Mr. Pattaya very well knows, we have been talking about this, it's also kind of education and secondary education, which is it's still a big need, and it's also an opportunity. This I must also say. So, is the PowerPoint moving on? Yes. You see many Austrian companies are already active. These are just a few names and a few projects. It's in German, so you will also receive this afterwards. We have, of course, the heli skiing, and we have agricultural companies and lighting, and also, of course, main thing is perhaps the hydropower station which Austria's built, and the winter sports field. Austria is also a big name in Georgia. So you can see Austrian companies are already there, some also today with us, and it's a market which can be dealt with and can be very rewarding. Where are our opportunities? Is it moving? Yes. Now I moved too fast again. Actually, what I mentioned already, and what I want to emphasize on here is, of course, we heard it. Georgia is one country on the Silk Road, on the obor, as the Chinese called it. We can see it, so logistics is there, but also, of course, education. And we will focus also on some of these areas in the next 1 or 2 years, with smart city being there, and agriculture, renewable energy, winter sports, special, and mobility. So some of the areas we will specialize on and focus on in the next time with our Georgian friends, because we think these are could be very rewarding for Austrian companies. Yeah, and now a short view on Azerbaijan, which does not have these agreements with the EU, but it has, of course, with Austria, like Georgia also, I must say, the double taxation agreement and investment protection agreements, which we heard about. So this is important as a base. It's, of course, the economy is very, I'm skipping this because we heard about the Azerbaijan economy, all the details. You can read it afterwards, but if the PowerPoint continues. It's very slow today. So let's come to this chart again. From our point of view, we can see again, we have excellent relations between Austria and Azerbaijan, which is always good also for business. I think I may say that Austria has a very good name in Azerbaijan, good quality and reliable. And again, I think also Austrian companies have a good mix of products for the Azerbaijani market. I think this is all similar to Georgia, and it's valid. We have this speciality in Azerbaijan that if you have a high oil price, you have very good project possibilities because there's more money. It is, as we heard also from Mr. Gadirov, this is fact. So it was quite difficult the last few years. Now the oil price is a little bit higher, so it's a little bit dependent on this. But that is also an opportunity because Azerbaijan wants to diversify. And there, I think Austrian companies also have good opportunities to go into these areas for diversification, like agriculture, like industry, like sports, winter sports, tourism, and so on. And the new economic policy in Azerbaijan also gives good opportunities and hope to do more business. I think these good relations also, as we see on government level, I think the Azerbaijani foreign minister just traveling to Austria these days again, also gives a very good access to important places, and we should never neglect this in business. I think, again, for Austrian companies, we have to see that it's more in focus, not really in focus yet. Although today we can see with 70 participants, it's really interest is there. We'll work on this, and again, it's a little bit more. Austrian products are expensive, and you have to really be in intensive contact. So the same situation, I can say, like in Georgia. And yes, I mentioned the oil price. This is always an option. It's the structure of the market is very narrow. Let's see, you really need the right context to do business, otherwise it will not work. And corruption, against corruption, is going in the right direction. It's moving on very well, and I think last few years has shown that this is going to be a problem in a short time. And yes, I think that, as I mentioned, the EU agreements are not there yet with Azerbaijan, but we hope they will come, because Azerbaijan is, of course, also the Eastern Partnership. Yeah, if the presentation moves on, I will just like to say we have many nice projects in Azerbaijan, which were especially there with the oil price, if we can go back. But one of the later things was, for example, the Austrian company Manna. It was in all newspapers, so I can mention it here. It's building up a hazelnut farm in Azerbaijan, so agriculture is something. And of course, the airport, the convention center, health center, and so on. All these typical also projects for Austrian companies, they were also involved. And that was I think that's also in future this is possible. And also that has been mentioned by Mr. Gadirov, of course, the Karabakh region is something which also Austrian companies should look into, because it's going to be quite a lot of money, $1.5 billion in the next time being invested there. So nice projects, and we should stay on the track. Education, Silk Road, industry modernization, environmental protection, all these areas also where Austria is strong in the building sector with specialty products, tourism infrastructure, and agriculture. All these areas also where we will focus on as our office, but it's also areas I think where Austrian companies are strong and where we can try to find projects which will suit both sides. This was very short because we are a little over the time, but I want to have also time for Q's and A's. You see our addresses here, and with this I would like to hand over to Christian Meyer, who will see which questions have come in. Christian.
Thank you very much, Georg, for summing up both countries, Georgia and Azerbaijan. I would also like to thank our speakers very much for their contributions, for the interesting speeches that we had today. It was very interesting, and we have already some questions from our guests, from our participants. Actually, it seems that the environmental sector is very much of interest for our participants. We have a question for both countries, for Georgia and for Azerbaijan, about special feed-in tariffs or other investments, incentives for electricity or biomethane produced from renewable energy sources like biogas, organic waste, or energy. So are there any special feed-in tariffs or other investments incentives for environmental energies? I would like to hand over first to Mr. Pataya for Georgia. Could you please give us an overview? Thank you.
Hi, I think that I cannot give you directly right now the specifics. I know that we had the special governmental team working on this issue. Generally, I can confirm that the government is ready and the government is working on specific tariffs to promote this kind of activities, but I cannot give you the specifics right now. I think that it would be great if you give us the author of the question, the name of the author of the question. I could give the information. I can answer a little bit later. Thank you.
Mr. Pataya, because of data protection reasons, I have not mentioned the name of the person, but of course we can pass the question on to you, and you can then reply in detail. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Gadirov, would you like to say something about Azerbaijan and environmental energy?
Mr. Meyer, thank you for the questions. I think I would like to ask a couple of things. There are no specific electricity-related, like incentives in the country. However, I'd like to mention a couple of things. Firstly, we have quite low electricity tariffs anyways, and if the company reaching out with this question would be willing to reach out directly, we would provide more information and as to formation of this electricity tariff. They would be able to see for themselves that this is very small, this is like very insignificant. So that's one important thing, because Azerbaijan itself is an exporter of electricity and we produce enough of it, and the cost of electricity is quite low. That's one thing. Another thing I wanted to mention on alternative energy sources production. This is a topic that is becoming increasingly important. We have recently signed an agreement with a consortium of 2 companies for major energy production in alternative energy both in solar and in wind production. One of them is for 200 megabytes, another one for 200 megabytes. It is expected that further projects will arrive. Of course, technical issues like access to grid and other issues are considered and may be overcome. So there is an opportunity in that area as well. If you have any projects that you think you may be submitting, because from time to time we see different projects for the periods of 25, 30 years when it comes to alternative energy. So we're considering such opportunities. And the third thing I wanted to deliver to your attention is the fact that after the liberation of the previously occupied territories, Mr. President declared 5 priorities, and one of them is green energy, green economy development. So this is something very important to mention as well. So I think if you'd like to go into more detail regarding alternative energy production, green economy, green energy, we would be able to provide more information. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gadirov. Thank you also, Mr. Pataya. I would also like to mention that in additional questions, it was also dealt with water and landfill gas treatment and also hydropower projects. Of course, as you might know, our companies are very much experienced in these environmental technologies and renewable energy. So these are very special questions, and we will deal with them afterwards and get back to you on that. Let me swap to another area which a question has been provided with. It's about tourism. We all know, we are all very... Yes.
Can I please interrupt you for just a second? You mentioned hydropower, and Mr. Karabachek mentioned that there are going to be opportunities on the liberated areas. For all the companies that are involved with the areas that you have just mentioned, all of them are more than welcome to provide their projects. At some point, this would be considered, and as Mr. Karabachek mentioned, there would be opportunities for infrastructure construction as well. And I think the government would consider all the incoming projects, and some of them may be, getting approval. So feel free just to provide your proposals, and I think they would be considered for sure. Excuse me for interrupting you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Mr. Gadirov. Let me suggest that in case companies would like to provide details or projects like you have mentioned, they can either get in touch with you directly with AZPROMO, or they can contact us, the offices of Advantage Austria in Istanbul and in Baku or in Tbilisi, in order to make the bridge between us two, let's put it that way. Well, yes, we had a question concerning tourism. As COVID-19 finally looks like it's going to end, at least in the coming months or maybe by next year, tourism is very important. What are the plans, especially in the tourism sector, let's say in Georgia, Mr. Pataya? Do you have any suggestions what your government is going to do?
Yes. First of all, the current situation is that right now we have the curfew, which was, it was changed just 2 days ago. We had the curfew starting from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. And now it's changed. It moved to the 11 p.m., which is good news already. The number of cases are going down, which means that it will allow the government to either abolish the curfew or to reduce the time of it. As I said in my speech, the airways are open, and a lot of air companies are flying right now to Georgia. It's not that frequent as it was in 2019, of course, but we have the planes coming from different parts of the Europe, from CIS countries, from Gulf countries, from Asia, etc. So it's starting. We see a lot of tourists already in the center of Tbilisi and in Batumi, which is on the Black Sea. The land borders are officially closed right now, but approximately 2 days ago, the Ministry of Economy announced that it will be opened in the beginning or middle of the summer, and it will attract more and more tourists. And generally everything depends on the vaccination process. We are very happy that especially our youngsters are pro-vaccination, and the people understand that it's important for them and important for countries. So I think vaccination process will go quite smoothly and fast, and we'll be able to go back on track that we had quite nice trend of the tourism at the end of the year. There are the experts who said that the summer season of Georgian tourism is going to be somewhere around 30% of what was in 2019. But as I said, this is just very rough numbers, and everything depends on vaccination, because the people who are vaccinated, they are eager to travel. They were quite long time in the closed environment. So it will be absolutely different numbers once the vaccination will be over, and it will be absolutely different demand coming from different countries. So I would not take into account only the numbers and statistics that we had in 2019, as the demand is going to be changed. It's not the same demand that we had in that year.
Thank you, Mr. Pertaya. Mr. Gadirov, we know that flying to Azerbaijan is still very difficult. It's quite restricted. Do we know already when these restrictions will be lifted, or at least partially lifted?
You're right.
Mr. Gadirov?
In order to get to Azerbaijan, you need to get the permission in advance. There is understanding. I think we start seeing potentially positive information coming from the media. We've seen that the medical entity in charge of the dissemination of information relating to COVID has mentioned that in the quite relatively close time frame, there may be abolishment of the requirement of wearing masks outside and of making public gatherings. So I think we start to getting some indications as to the situation may be improving, and also the vaccination program, just like in Georgia, I think it's on its way. I think there was a forecast that by end summer, most of population might be getting their vaccine shot, so that the situation is improving. As to tourism, I think, this has been an interesting year when foreign tourism has been restricted severely, as Mr. Pertaya has mentioned. But due to this, and I think the domestic tourism has got some very significant boost, and since people cannot travel outside of the country, domestically it has been flourishing. So I think this is bringing us to the idea that infrastructure is still in place. Before the COVID outbreak, we've had a very significant number of tourists from 4 locations majorly. This is former CIS, this is Chinese direction, this is GCC, and of course European direction as well. So I think hopefully, I'm not sure about the summer 2020, but it seems like the end of this situation is not that far anymore. I think last year this time everything was pretty unclear. In Azerbaijan, we've had the 3rd wave of COVID this time, but this one has not been anywhere close to being as severe as the 2nd one, and the figures are going down. So I think there is positive dynamics, and we really hope this would be solved largely in the relatively close future.
Thank you, Mr. Gadirov. As we are already over time, I think we would like to wrap up here now. I would like to thank all the speakers once again for being with us today. And I would like to finish with a positive outlook. We all hope that this COVID-19 slowly will leave us, and that hopefully by next time we will be able to meet all together. We are very eager to travel to Georgia and to Azerbaijan, and vice versa. We would be happy to welcome you back in Austria in the near future. So let's hope that for the next event already we can meet in person. Now, thank you all for meeting today, for being with us today. And if there are any questions which we could not answer because of time, then we will get back to the people who asked and who sent us these questions. Thank you very much. Georg, would you like to add something from your side?
The same. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Pertayo. Thank you very much, Mr. Gadirov. Thank you very much, Mr. Lavadze. And